Alright, we're here today to talk about contraption squats. This is Adam White. He's one of my athletes. He's also the Vaughn weightlifting mobility coach. So I'm going to give you some information from my perspective as a weightlifter and as a weightlifting coach, and Adam's going to kind of add to that a little bit where I leave off with some more mobility information. So if you'll get a shot of the contraption here, this is the contraption. Basically what we're doing is we are blocking athletes' feet to help them get into the position and move the way that we want them to, and to teach them how to do that. And the athletes that this is going to be for, honestly, is going to be for most athletes, because most athletes, especially within a full range of motion squat, are going to struggle mobility-wise in some way. And I have some specific issues for you to look out here. But if you talk about, think about a full range of motion squat, I do just want to touch on that real quick. And I think most people these days understand the benefit and reasoning and purpose of squatting in a full range of motion. But just to make sure, what does that really mean? It really means that you're taking by the time you get to the bottom of your squat, you're taking your ankle and your knee to their in range, and you're setting on yourself in the bottom. Okay? Going as low as you can go. And the reason for that is really, for me, for preparation of the reception of the snatch and the clean. If you're always stopping short of that in range of motion, those in range of motion in your squat, and you're trying to lift the most weight that you possibly can in the snatch and the clean, you're not ever really getting any preparation for that. So make sure, first of all, that you know how to do a full range of motion squat. But when you go full range of motion in the squat, like I said, for most people, it's going to cause a lot of issues that we want to overcome. What we really need in the bottom of that squat is for you to be, as an athlete, as flexible as you can be, as comfortable down there. Comfortable means that basically as you're down there in that bottom position, you can relax for the most part, disengage your quads and set on yourself from the bottom. And then we need you to be as strong as you possibly can down there. And basically the contraption squats, the biggest motivation for that is because most people do struggle a lot in this regard, is how do we get people there? How do we change their mobility, and how do we get them comfortable? How do we get them to the point to where they can start loading on more and more weight and getting as strong as they possibly can? So through that full range of motion, in specific, the contraption squats are for people with what I call crazy feet. And what that means is that if you as a coach are having an athlete squat and go deeper and deeper and deeper, and as you do that, you put their feet in whatever stance that you put them in, and they just slip out wider, the toes turn out. And specifically, contraptions are going to help the people that are rolling to the inside of their feet, so their arch is collapsing, or they have a lot of trouble pushing their knees out. So for most people, I find by having them push their knees out helps them with the coordination of their squat, keeping the body optimally engaged, and creates a better, more flexible bottom position for them. So for those people that are, like I said, their feet are what I would say is excessively wide or excessively turned down, especially those people that roll to the inside and have trouble pushing their knees out. So what is, well, real quick, Adam, do you have anything to add to that in regards to who? And I know we talked a little bit before about using this also for maybe some hypermobile athletes, or for athletes that were trying to just change their foot position. So for people that maybe don't necessarily have mobility issues, but they're used to squatting with their feet really wide for whatever reason, and just giving them the awareness of that changing foot position.
Oh, definitely. And a couple things that I just want to add to what you said is when we're looking at foot position, we kind of, both Chad and I take from Kelly Surratt's optimal foot position of 5 to 15 degrees. So if you take, if you take anywhere from 5 to 15 degrees is okay. Anything past 15 degrees, you see the knee come in and the arch collapse. And another thing that I just want to add to the reason we're doing a contraption squat, and when Chad talks about full range of motion squats, one of the biggest reasons we're using the contraption is to make sure that you don't violate a couple principles, like not only just with the toes turning out, but really being able to keep a neutral spine so that you're not losing any position in the pelvis. So Chad, if you could actually face the wall and do another squat here, what you're going to see with Chad doing a squat is his knees track out, his big toe is on the ground, and he maintains a neutral spine throughout. So those are really some of the key things we're looking for here when someone's performing a squat, not just are they all the way down there, we're trying to use the contraption squats to make sure they have awareness to those positions and to make sure those positions are stellar so it can transfer to the lifts. And one of the biggest things there, what we're going to add about hypermobile athletes, is a hypermobile athlete is somebody that has a lot of range of motion but not very much control over that range of motion or not very much body awareness. So what the contraption squat is going to do is it's going to almost force the foot position. As you can see, there's not too much room for air when squatting with the contraption, and it's going to put the athlete in the position that we want them to go in, and ingrain the optimal positions that we're looking for. And with the stance being much more narrow for reasons we will go over in a second here.
Sure, and that kind of reminds me why I tend to dream up these things anyway, because I do work with a lot of athletes, and you know, when I'm trying to tell them to do something and they can't do them, and after another year of me telling them to do those things and I still can't completely get them to do what I want, well, let me come up with a way to where I can force you into these positions. And so, you know, on top of this, we'll have other little tricks that we'll show you on YouTube eventually as well. When I say wide and turned out, let's just really define what is excessively wide and what is excessively turned out. To me, it's anything outside of what I'm going to call a stance of most potential. Most of the stuff that we're talking about is going to be debatable. What I found with myself and with other athletes, the stance that's going to allow them to lift the most inside of a full range of motion squat, whether that be front squat, back squat, or overhead squat, just for those movements, is going to be about shoulder width apart with the toes slightly turned down. And again, Adam referred to mobility WOD's 5 to 15 degrees. I've always taught a slight turnout, but I'm definitely glad that I have been able to adopt the 5 to 15 degrees. I really like that and think that that's pretty right on. But we have this slight range of shoulder width apart to slightly outside, meaning up to an inch out on each side. And shoulder width means the measurement from the outside of each foot is going to be the same to the outside of each shoulders. And I believe that's going to give you the most potential, at least eventually down the road, the most potential range of motion, so the most potential overall mobility in that width, and also the most potential strength. And strength-wise, it's if you think about it in terms of if I have my feet more up underneath my body and my feet more solid on the floor, I'm going to be able to lift more that way. Okay, so anything outside of that, we're going to say is excessive. And if you struggle with this stance, so say for example, yeah, we can put anybody in this stance when they're standing up, but what do they look like as they go down? Are they completely rounded? Do they fall backwards? And a lot of people will. And again, that's what we're getting at with these contraptions, okay, and the elevation as well. Another thing to think about is that if your feet are beyond that, it's going to contribute to these faults that we're talking about. So the feet rolling to the inside, you having trouble pushing your knees out, the knees coming in as you stand up, even just an overall solid position in your upper body, so it can contribute to your entire back rounding, those elbows dropping in the clean, not much range of motion here, the body having to be further through in the overhead position. All those things that you think about are lacking quality can be contributed to if your feet are too wide and too turned out. Okay, so what this does as well is that if you're always squatting like this, for example, so this to me is a little bit wide and probably even a little bit too turned out, then you're preparing like this. You're going full range of motion squat just like we want you to, but every single one of your squats are like this: front squat, back squat, overhead squat. What this really means to me is that when you do your heaviest snatch and clean and you react, right, your feet are probably going to be a little bit different than this, in that they're probably going to jump out at least slightly wider and slightly more turned out. What happens when we pull ourselves underneath the bar, you think about it, if I'm going to load right here my weight, the heaviest weight that I can in the clean right now, for example, I'm going to focus on my pull just like I should, give everything I got here. I'm going to go as fast and as aggressive as I can through the extension, and then I'm going to pull myself under the bar as quickly as I can. And I can't slow myself down in the middle of that and say, wait a minute, Chad, you can't let your feet go wider than this, you can't let them turn out more than this, you can't let your knee go in front of your toe, you can't go to the end range of your ankle, you got to keep your shin as vertical as possible. All those things that misconceptions in the squat, and specifically what we're talking about with the feet, you're not going to be able to control them. So the control of that is going to be you squatting with this better stance and developing the ability to have the highest quality squat with this stance of most potential that I'm going to call it. And even though I'm going to squat like this all the time, I do squat like this all the time, my feet are still slightly different than that when I receive especially a snatch. But when I receive a snatch and a clean, but because I'm always squatting this way and always preparing with my feet in this good, highest quality, highest potential position, it holds that off as much as possible. So it allows my reception to be the best that it can be. And that's really my biggest motivation in doing that. And I know that Adam's going to have some mobility, a little bit of mobility perspective to add to that as well.
Yeah, so when we talk about especially prepping the position, so almost to recap, because this is the way I think about it when he was teaching me on the Olympic side of we squat because we're training our body where to go in the reaction being after the extension of the clean and the snatch. And especially in the snatch, when and even in the clean, you hear about these injuries to the knee and the problems there when you go really, really wide with the feet. Not only, he talked about the upper back position, the shoulder position, you tend to see that knee dive in. So you see that valgus knee position where if I'm going down in a squat, you'll see here almost the W sit. And that's simply because when you go so wide, you're taking your hip to almost its end range here. So then you don't have any room to work with. And you're also you're inhibiting that musculature from stabilizing the pelvis, right? So you're taking the musculature of the hips, you're taking them to their end range, not in the most optimal position. When I say end range there, you're widening them out to a place where they're almost kind of on tension, and then you lose force production as well. So not only are you setting yourself up to have some of the faults that we're going to be talking about, you're not going to be in the strongest position possible from even a mechanical standpoint.
Sure. All right, perfect. So now let's get into the setup and a little bit more on the purpose of this setup. So again, what we're doing with this is we're forcing you to get into the stance that we want and forcing you to maintain that position. And if you'll notice the elevation here, that's going to, what that is a cheat. And it doesn't matter what's wrong with your squat. You can tell me anything in the world that's wrong with your squat. We can make it look and feel better if we elevate your heels, and the awareness of that is going to be very, very big and beneficial to you as an athlete. But again, we're controlling where your feet are going, and we're giving you awareness not only with the elevation, but with keeping your feet here and forcing you to move better. We're giving you awareness of those better positions and that better movement. Okay, so if we look here. Well, one thing that happens, obviously, you guys know if you're an athlete that does this, or if you have athletes that do it, when they squat down from almost any stance that you put them in, their heels and or their toes will slide out and do a lot of crazy, funny things, right? So now, if we block their feet on the inside of their heels here to keep their heels from turning in, and then if we block their feet on the outside and keep them from turning out, and now when you're coaching your athletes and you're telling them to push their knees out, as I believe that you should, they're going to be more able to do that, right? And Adam will probably have a couple little cues and pointers to help you do that a little bit better, okay? So blocking your feet in. Now, there is a very important purpose of not only the elevation that I talked about, but the angling and rounding of the plate here. So especially for those athletes that their arch collapse, so the inside of their feet collapse, and the outside of their heels, you can tell, outside of their heels are really coming off the floor. We would rather them go to the outside of the feet right now. Eventually, we want them to be solid on the floor. So I can do a squat, and my whole foot stays very solid on the floor, and that's eventually where we want you to be. But right now, this angle right here will force that athlete more to the outside of the foot. And for those people that cave in a lot, you will see that even on this angled plate, they will pretty much be, from my experience so far, they've pretty much been able to just be very solid on the entire foot there, okay? So that is the more of the purpose of the setup and the purpose of the setup. You can use 10-pound metal plates or 5-kilo plates are good. As far as this goes, it's going to be individual dependent. This is a 15-pound dumbbell. I find that 15 or 20-pound dumbbells has worked best for most people. It's going to depend on look at the, set them up shoulder width apart or slightly outside of that. And what I would really do as a whole is try to get them to that shoulder width position, even if their ideal stance is going to be slightly outside of that, just as an exaggeration to help make these changes and move forward from there. For the outside plates, make sure that you are using something heavy enough to keep their feet from turning out. If somebody turns out a whole lot and it's very noticeable, they may be strong enough to push them out. So don't just use like a 10-pound plate. Use at least a 15-kilo plate or 35-pound plate, or something a little more than that. Okay. So, Adam, do you have anything to?
Yeah. So I just want to kind of almost talk about the contraption, and if you're working with some really stiff athletes, so some people that, okay, this might be, oh well, this is even really narrow, or oh, if I'm forcing a range of motion, like I have an athlete that, oh, I have knee pain, I can't squat that narrow, or I have hip problems, back problems, those types of things. This is simply an intro to the contraption squat, so don't get turned off to the contraption squat, because our overall goal with this is to not only say, okay, this is optimal, this is an optimal foot position, this is where we would want your body to go, but it's a little bit more progressive than what just this conversation is. We're going to be showing y'all how to do some mobility to integrate with this, to improve your positions over time, and to kind of take this as a baseline of, if I can get to here and if I can use this as a drill, because obviously you're not just going to take the contraption squat, load up a heavy squat and go hard, especially if you've never even squatted with your feet this narrow. We're using it almost as a drill, so to speak, to train your body to say, oh, I can go here, and then the mobility that we're going to be showing along with it is going to take your positions and improve them. So that's just something that's very key. So don't get turned off to the contraption squat if you think, oh wow, I can never go that narrow, because it is a progressive kind of protocol that we're going to be showing there. So.
Yeah, and the basic idea is, like he's talking about progressing, is this is the highest we're going to go. The idea is to progress down. As you go through a single workout that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, and definitely as you go through weeks, you're going to try to progress with less and less support, right? So take it all the way down to the elevation, and Adam even talked about using it for hyper mobile athletes to try to find a better foot position for them. We're going to do these without elevation. Obviously, they're not going to need the elevation. And then whenever you go down in elevation from this, like a 2.5-kilo plate or a 5-pound plate, you're just going to make sure that they're separated enough to where you still have that same angle, and then you go to the floor and you're good to go. But let's talk about the protocol that I have for you today. And this protocol, especially if you're in extreme case, so you're the bottom position, your bottom position is you're just completely folded in all kind of different ways, or for your athlete, then what I want you to start with is, first of all, considering not doing any other squats during this phase. Let's just do only these and see, give yourself a chance with these, get a lot of only good reps in, and see what happens. But basically what we're going to do is 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps at 3 different elevations in one workout. Okay, so 3 different elevations is going to be the 5-kilo plate, then down to the 2.5-kilo plate, and then down to the level surface. All right, so now we're on the level surface, and we're basically going to be doing the same thing. Okay, now within each of the elevations, what I like to do is I like to start someone off with their feet straight. And again, we talked about the ideal stance is 5 to 15 degrees. Since we have this elevation, it's a little bit of a cheat. We're trying to exaggerate. We're doing a lot of exaggerating. I would say go ahead and set their feet straight, or your feet straight if you can. I would do 1 or 2 of those 3 to 5 sets there. And then what I like to do over sets is progress their toes in. So yes, this is not a stance that you are going to use for your regular squats and for the reception of your snatch and your clean, but again, we're exaggerating. So I like to progress them in as much as I can, as long as quality is maintained, as long as they can still get to a full range of motion and keep their back tight and keep their knees out sufficiently and all that kind of thing. When I go down in elevation from there, and let's just say that we're now on 2.5-kilo plates, or down to level surface, every time I switch and lower the elevation, I'm going to turn those toes back out. So now back to straight feet, 1 or 2 sets there. If they're looking good, I can then again progress them in, and then we get to the floor and we do the same thing. Now 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps at each level. We're going to do this for 3 to 5 weeks, and I'm going to have something a little bit more specific for you in the description that you can follow and try out. But for 3 to 5 weeks, and after 3 to 5 weeks, I want you to reevaluate and then do it again if you can. Make a couple changes and go from there. And again, understand that these are most beneficial. I believe that these alone are very beneficial and would help you a lot, but they are way more beneficial if you're combining them with some individualized mobility that we're going to go over in different videos and as we move forward. Now, you can do these with any kind of a squat. I recommend, especially if the bottom of your squat is really struggling, don't worry about doing these with overhead squats. You can go goblet squat is going to be the best one. You can go back squat, and you can go with front squats. Now, if your front rack position is locked up and gives you a lot of trouble, then let's forget the front squats for a while. Let's fix the bottom of your squat first, and then we'll have a lot more tips for you for that front rack position. If the back squat you're not able to maintain quality, then go with all goblet squats for as long as you need to maintain that quality. That quality is going to be most important, and the goblet squat is going to be the one that will allow you to do that the best that you possibly can. So extreme cases, you're just going to be all goblet squat in the beginning. Okay?
So just a quick question there real quick. So just to give folks kind of a range, what do you have athletes do for weight, right? You're probably asking yourself, what kind of weight should I do in these squats, or even with the goblet squat? What do you recommend?
Absolutely. So for goblet squats, obviously I'm not going to have you hold a 100-pound kettlebell here, but something that you're comfortable with, get up to something on a goblet squat as heavy as you can. One thing that I noticed today, I was actually doing this with an individual in an on-ramp, and I actually, I'm glad you asked this, because I actually had him do goblet squats with contraption instead of wall balls. In the workout that he had for on-ramp, there were wall balls in there, but I didn't feel like his squat was of a good enough quality. So remember when I said in the beginning, if you really struggle with the squat, then try to take away any regular squats. And regular squats don't mean just back, front, and overhead. It means thrusters and wall balls and stuff like that. So if inside of a WOD you have thrusters or wall balls, and you're just going to get a million reps of your feet, your arch collapsing and everything else, it's not really going to help us. So go ahead and do inside of your WOD contraption goblet squats, or just pick a different exercise and get your heart rate up and isolate them, which would probably be better. But as far as the kettlebell, you can go up as heavy as you can maintain here. Another thing to look out for with the kettlebell is that, we want your elbows to be up to help you stay tight and everything else, but don't get that kettlebell up so high that it's causing your neck to go back a lot and kinking, because that can cause you to be more likely to round right here and everything else. You want your head just to stay in a neutral, relaxed position. So make sure the kettlebell is down enough to accommodate that, so it doesn't carry over to this as well. But as far as if you're going to use this with front and back squats, make sure I probably wouldn't go anything over 50%. I like you to put a little bit of weight on there, because I like it to force you down into a better stretch and force tension and all that kind of good thing. But I would stay probably at 50% or below. And that means, if you're going to do this and not do regular squats for a while, you're not going to get any heavy squats in, but it's going to be well worth it to fix your mobility. If you get to the point to where you're on the level surface and you're still maintaining quality, on level surface they can go a little heavier if they like.
Definitely. Okay. And then just one thing I want to add, and it's probably one of the biggest, especially if you're somebody that has suffered with mobility, and this is speaking mostly from personal experience, is especially when you're doing these drills, and Chad mentioned it, if you have a lot of problems and if you've been dealing with any sort of pain problems, he mentioned, take this step back, drill the squat. You're going to have such a more long-term potential. And when you're doing these contraption squats, make sure that the positions are exactly where they need to be, that your knees track outside the big toe, your big toe stays on the ground, and you maintain tension in the abs, and you don't round anywhere, right? Because it's all about longevity. If you take the contraption squat and then you just do a squat, you mind if I and you just go, even with the contraption, you just flop down and don't go under any tension, it's actually going to do more harm than good. He said it exactly, the more reps you do in a bad position, the more mobility work, the more positional work you're going to have to do over time to unring those belts. So it's really focusing on what the goal is, and the goal is having a squat where all the principles are being abided by, your body is in good positions, you're tight where you need to be tight, you're relaxed where you need to be relaxed, and thinking, hey, look, if I want a longer potential as an athlete, or if I'm an older athlete and I have a lot of pain and problems, taking a couple steps back can cause, if you take 3 steps back, you're going to be taking 6 steps forward. It's that battle of finding the right balance, getting the right position, and then pushing it over time. So that would be one of the biggest things I would want to have.
Absolutely, yes. And one thing that I want to leave you with, what we're going to leave you after this, that one thing that I got from Adam that's helped me a whole lot with my athletes in trying to get them to push their knees out better, and especially in combination with the contraption, is that, yeah, we're pushing our knees out, but for a lot of people, what Adam taught me is if you will twist out first, so you can twist in, right? We don't want that. That's what collapses the arch. But you can twist out first, and then push out from there. So the cue would kind of be twist out and push out, and use that one along with these contraptions. We're going to give you a lot more information on specific mobility that you can do between sets to make this even better as we move forward. So we'll see you next time.